All right. So starting off, he says that in previous chapters, we started to go through the kind of three basic ways that people try to develop a worldview to counter Christianity. And we said, the worldview is the way that you look at the world. And so you might not even know that you have a worldview. The person you're talking to might have not even heard of the term worldview before, but it's that underlying assumption of how you view things in the world and kind of how you take in information and divvy it up into what you kind of consider as acceptable, not acceptable, believable, unbelievable, and etc. But there is more we need to say about responding to unbelief. As
Mhm.
we said, the argument in favor of the Christian worldview is that without it, you cannot prove anything. That's a big, big claim. Now, that's easy to say. Of course, he says. Someone might be responding by saying, but how do you know that? So that's what this
Mm.
chapter will entail.
Right. And so he suggests that your answer would be something like this, that without the Christian worldview, there's no basis for scientific inference based on causality. Without the Christian worldview, there's no basis for classes or concepts or the laws of logic by which we, reason deductively.
Right.
Without the Christian worldview, man does not have a mind in which he can investigate options and choose the truth based on evidence. He has only a brain controlled by electrochemical processes so that he can't help but say what he does say, right? Uh, that is to say, if the materialist is right, Oxford tells us, he has no reason to believe that he is right. He just has a brain that forced him to say and to think what he does, right? And so that's kind of a wild situation that the materialists find themselves in.
Right. Right. And so this is what we talk about when we talk about granting the person the facts of their side and to do an internal critique. This isn't to say that, this is what every single atheist that you encounter absolutely believes, but this is to say, according to the atheistic or non-theistic, non-Christian worldview, here's
Especially the materialistic one, right?
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So when we kind of divvied up each kind of belief system into how they view reality, this is the one that I think a majority of Western people kind of hold to, who don't have a deity as a belief system, and so this is saying, according to that understanding of a worldview, here's what you should think of reality. And when you have people say, no, 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 that's not what I think about reality at all, well, we'd have to say, well, you're living inconsistent to what your actual beliefs are, and so
Mhm.
that's kind of a point of attack, a discussion point that we can have with other people, where we're then discussing kind of the nature of reality from their point of view. And so obviously we want to give them the other side, the Christian point of view, and that comes into effect when we do direct evangelism. But this kind of lays a foundation for where we can kind of have a discussion based on the what the other person understands about everything.
Yeah. What their basic claims ought to be
Right,
based on what they're saying they believe,
right,
right?
right. And then he goes on to say, finally, without the Christian worldview, there could be no moral absolutes, including even the moral absolute that you shouldn't cheat in your lab report or statistics, or that you shouldn't take out a gun and shoot your opponent to win an argument that we discussed last time. I mean,
Yeah.
there have been big news when things in Nature magazine or Peter Boghossian and James. I forget his last name. They faked some results to show how easy it was to get kind of the social justice scientific papers through without any vetting whatsoever, and they showed how kind of impacted the so-called science journals are. James Lindsay, I just thought of it.
Yeah.
They showed how easy it is to get through the this all science does is they take a look at the data and repeat it, and that's all there is to science. And so of course when we went over Mitch Stote's book, we said, well, that's not at all the how science works, because scientists aren't Mr. Spock. They're people, and they exist in in the world. And so to say, science is apolitical,
and in a particular culture and in a particular,
absolutely
philosophical
right.
viewpoint, a worldview, basically
Right.
the same types of things we're talking about.
Right. And so we're saying, well, why shouldn't we do those things if it progresses our ideology, if we believe that it's the best ideology, if we think we know better than you, then why not lie? Well, lying's bad. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why should that be the case? Even if it goes against what your end goal beliefs are. What if it's to have equality among all people is actually the worst outcome? Well, why should you present those facts as well? And so we have to figure that out from a worldview perspective there.
Mm-hmm.
So those behaviors cannot be excluded unless you have a basis of moral absolutes. And the atheist has no basis for moral absolutes. Not that he can't be moral, but that there's no basis for that morality.
Right. No justification, no good reason
right.
to be moral from their worldview perspective.
Right. So he says, he might say, if we don't respect one another, if we start shooting each other, just think how unhappy society will be.
So there it is. All right. So I guess they do have a reason. The reason is we want society to be happy. But
right.
There's a problem with that, right?
Right. So your response could be, well, yes, society will be unhappy, but so what? Why am I under obligation to work for the happiness of society?
Yeah,
right. Well, you might get a greater benefit out of it. And I'm like, no. I make my own way. I don't rely on anybody. I don't care about having children and perpetuating the flow of new offspring. Yeah. I have 60 years or 80 years or however long with the various technology to get through the life, and I have to have the most amount of things at the end, and that's what makes me happy, because you can't take it with you, but I'm definitely going to try.
Right. And you definitely can't take society with you.
Right. Yeah.
So why should I care? Right.
Yeah.
And that's, he suggests that this is how, how, if they're consistent, this is the way they should think about it. Right. I mean, why in the world should we be concerned about these types of things? And so he says, as he indicates that he said at the end of the previous chapter, when you use arguments of this kind with an atheist or materialist, you must not expect that they will say, oh, well, I guess my worldview has been destroyed and I have to become a Christian, right? He says sometimes that may happen, but usually it won't happen.
Right.
And so he wants us to think about ways in which people try to avoid the pain of the logical consequences of their worldview.
Right.